The world is not going to end next Friday. It's only the end of a cycle of time. But that's not stopping the whole planet from getting swept up in end-of-the-world mania. Everywhere from China to a small village in southwestern France, the build-up to December 21st attracting doomsday predictors, survivalists, and among the unrepentant, revelers in search of a good party. Why is it that here in the 21st century, rumors can spread to the point where, for instance, Chechenya's president has to go on television to tell citizens to stop stocking up on candles? To most, it may be a rumor, but it's also a wonderful opportunity to pose a few fundamental questions, such as when and how will the world really end, and what does our view of the future say about the present? Today in the France 24 debate, the end is near, and with us to talk about it is screenwriter Alex Nikolovich, a comic book writer, I should say, and author of the book Apocalypse, A Brief History of the End of the World, published in French, soon to be translated?
Not yet, but I hope so.
Fingers crossed, if the world doesn't end. Archaeologist Jean-Paul Demoule teaches at Paris 1, the Sorbonne University. Thank you for being with us. Bruno Delprat of CELIA, that's the French Center on Indigenous American Languages. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks.
And who's the man underneath that mask? Well, it looks like Craig Kapitas of Quartz and the Atlantic. Craig, what are you wearing?
This is a Mayan mask. The Mayans wore masks in everyday life. They wore them into battle. They wore them on the streets. They wore them in their religious services. I've spent a lot of time in Quintana Roo, and this one was made about four years ago. And it's
you can take it off. It's a bit warm in the studio here.
It's all part of what's going on down there, which, believe it or not, has been terrific for the economy in the Yucatan. And it started earlier this year, and it's just fantastic business and great because it gives everyone a glorious opportunity to learn about the Mayans and archaeology, which is something that I have always been completely fascinated by.
And of course, why that civilization began to fade even before the arrival of the Spanish. First of all, what did Bruno, set us straight here? What did the Mayans really say when that current calendar of theirs ends on Friday? What happens?
What happens, I think, is the end of a cycle, actually. They have a calendar system which is made of successive cycles. So there is a shorter cycle, the basic one, let's say, which corresponds to the span of the life of the man, of 52 years. And that cycle repeats every 52 years.
Every 52 years.
And the counting unit system of the Maya are based on the base 20 system. So they have a position number counting system, in which it's after 19 you go to the next unit. So you count the number of 20s. So after 19 is 20. And so 40 is actually 2 20s. So that's the way they count. And so because of that, then they made higher units than these 52 years, then 20 times 52, which is another big celebration. And then we come to superior units, and we can up to the dates we are supposedly arriving to, which is 13 times, then after you have a 0, and then you have 4 zeros after that.
Okay, so as a result, you get to Friday.
Yes.
And then what happens?
And 5,125 years have passed since a supposed 0 date in their calendar. So what happens is just another new cycle of 52 years that comes on. And there should be some celebrations, I guess, within the ancient Mayas for that. They would build a new pyramid on top of the other one and have new stucco paintings on it, new ancient writing, and a lot of celebration and maybe some sacrifices.
All right, and as Craig Kapitas was saying, one of the benefits of this craze is that it's indeed shedding light on the great Mayan civilization as we're doing. The 20 to 30 million descendants of that culture who live mostly in poverty today grateful that we're talking about them and hopefully a bit more about their plight. Their most famous advocate, 1992 Nobel Peace Laureate Rigoberto Menchú.
Hay dos celebraciones aquí.
There are two kinds of celebrations. One is the authentic Mayan celebration, which the world won't see. It's part of the Mayans' private life. We will say goodbye to our grandfather's son in 1,000 different ways.
The Mayans, as you've just mentioned, have still a vibrant culture today, the descendants of the Mayans today, and there's all this mystery surrounding why this great civilization arose and then disappeared.
I would say that actually the main reason for the disappearance of this civilization is the invasion by the Western people, by the Spanish when they arrived there.
But it was already in decline from the 13th century.
It was, yes. The civilization had some difficulties, it seems, with agriculture.
Yes.
It seems there had been some drought period. But we can see that such declines happened also in earlier periods of their civilization. They already had one around 250 years after Christ, and at the end of the classic period. So the Spaniards came at a time where the Mayas still had their writing, still had beautiful cities. One is possible to visit it by the sea, which is Tulum, on which the Spaniards arrived by boat with Cortes and other people. And but the Mayas are still alive. The civilization, Maya civilization continues. They still have their traditions, some parts of their ancient religions, we would say, that is mixed together with the Christian religion. And a lot of different languages, Mayan languages, are spoken, and still there's teaching in these languages in the schools.
How did we get from this great civilization to suddenly this rumor that swept the entire planet?
It was a great marketing opportunity, which started down there 5 years ago. The causes for the decline of the Mayan civilization, there are many, many theories. One of the more interesting things, I mean, you mentioned one, is this blending of Catholicism with Mayan culture, hence these various artifacts here from Quintana Roo, that there were actually only 2 Spanish vessels that made it into the Quintana Roo portion where Tulum is, which was kind of the Miami Beach, if you will, of the Mayan Empire, where Chichen Itza was more or less the New York City. And the way ships got in there was fantastic. This is how they kept them out. At the temple at Tulum, in the Grand Castle, there are 2 giant windows. And these are believed by some archaeologists to have been the first lighthouses known in the world. And when Mayan boats would come in, they would light 2 fires in these windows, and the vessel would come in, following, straight down the middle. And the Mayans are exceptionally proud of their heritage, and they all have big bellies. And the reason for this is down there in the culture. If you have a big belly, that signifies prosperity. And they are the most hospitable, wonderful folks you'll ever want to meet.
So how did we get, again, to this notion that the world's about to end?
Well, because the Mayan culture is so mysterious. All of their writings, if they had writings, were wiped out. As you archaeologists know, you're still trying to figure out a lot of the hieroglyphs that are written, many of them with skulls. Skulls are very important in Mayan tradition. And this whole thing about the cycle that you mentioned, no one really took the time to look into it to see it was just the beginning of a new cycle. And any good reason for a party. And I have, having participated in some of this summer, I think that's really what this is all about.
All right, reasons for a good party. Doomsday mania sweeping over not just that part of the world. And I got to put this to you, Alex Nikolovic. In your book, you talk about there being a history of the end of the world. Do you see that there is this sort of apocalypse fear? We saw in the year 2000 there was this sort of fear in some parts that there would be an end of the world. Here we are in 2012, and again, there's this grand date on the calendar. Is it a sign just of globalization that we're all talking about it?
There have always been talks about end of the world, almost as long as the world began. Most of the time, there are political issues at work with apocalypse. There are people who challenges the institution, saying, okay, they are bad and they're bringing the world to its doom, and there are, on the other hand, powers who wants to enforce their powers. It was
so fear of the end of the world.
Yes, fear of the end of the world.
Keeps them in power.
Yes, stick to the leader, and we will help you.
What's a good example of that?
Ronald Reagan, with the Armageddon speech, he was talking a lot about Armageddon in the 80s.
All right, and it's Doomsday Mania, of course, starting at home. This being France 24. We can take you to the southwestern village of Bucarache, where Joe Tandy says the locals are of two minds about the attention they're suddenly drawing.
For 2 years now, Ludovic Broquet has been preparing for a very important event. Convinced that the world's set to end on Friday, he came to Bucarache, a tiny hamlet in the French Pyrenees reputed for the quality of its goat's cheese and held by some as one of the world's only refuges from the impending doom.
I'm here to try to find this gateway, the vortex that will maybe open up here for the end of the world.
At the heart of the doomsday drama, the nearby mountain, Le Pic de Bucarache. For years, locals have claimed to see UFOs circling the summit. Online, rumours reached apocalyptic proportions. Believing the mountain hides an alien spacecraft, people calling themselves future survivors began paying visits to Bucarache. Among them were groups claiming to speak an extraterrestrial tongue and preparing for a flight off planet Earth. In recent months, local authorities decided to step into the fray, fearing a tsunami of would-be World's End survivors in the run-up to December 21st.
We'll prohibit access to the top of the mountain, at least to the steepest part. If, as we expect, there are only a few hundred people, we will give people free access to the village itself.
Meanwhile, some people didn't appear to see the impending destruction as a matter of life or death.
We've come to grab a spot on board the flying saucer. If you put your hands out like this, you can really feel the energy.
And according to the village mayor, the biggest disaster so far has struck the local property market.
Residents thought that there would be people coming here to buy property to protect themselves from the end of the world. They've at least doubled the price of their houses or properties, but nothing was sold.
Bucarache residents have sought other means to cash in on the coming cataclysm. Rooms in bed and breakfasts are priced at hundreds of euros per night. World's End merchandise has cropped up everywhere. Meanwhile, the mayor's planning his own exodus from Bucarache. After the apocalypse, he's planning a voyage off on holiday.
All right, there's a morality tale in there somewhere about trying to sell the houses at a more expensive price. Well, there's one man who, when he retires, will be able to claim that he, as a reporter, went and covered the end of the world. That's France 24's James Andre, and he joins us now from Bucarache. James, are there more doomsday sayers or journalists where you are at this point?
Well, to be honest, it's pretty much a little bit of a non-event right now. We have a lot of journalists, about 250 have been accredited here, a lot of policemen also. The gendarmerie has been deployed massively to stop people from climbing onto the mountain, because indeed they're afraid that they might fall into a hole and hurt themselves. So there are about 80 gendarme policemen who have been deployed around the mountain to stop people from climbing. And earlier on today, we actually managed to speak to somebody who was there to save his own life, of course, and to avoid being swept by doomsday. And he's tried to climb up. He came from Bordeaux. He is a plumber. and he got caught on his way up, so he's been rather unlucky for the moment. As for basically the people around here, well, they're all very pleased. In fact, a lot of them, the locals, they were telling us, usually not much goes on around here in midwinter, and we're actually quite happy to have all this activity. Others are actually hiding in their houses not to speak to the media.
James, just remind us again, why Bugarash?
Well, basically, there are two theories. One of them is that the Pic de Bugarash, you were talking about earlier on, this mountain is an inverted mountain, which is a geological special, it's a special type of mountain. In fact, the lower layers are on top, etc. And it is said that there is a very special type of magnetism here that could save people from reversing the poles, because some people believe that on Doomsday, well, the North Pole will be in the south and the South Pole will be in the north, which of course will cause many problems that I can't precise that much more here. And this is not going to happen here since it's already inverted, so you would be saved. The other one, of course, is the fact that there is apparently, allegedly, but I have no proof of it, of course, that there is a flying saucer parked underneath the mountain that will come out on Doomsday to save the people who will be there. So these are the two theories. Now we have to wait and see what actually happens on the day, of course.
And you've got front row seats. James Andre, thanks for that, from the upside down world
of safe, I'm sure.
Okay, the upside down world of Bugarash, southwestern France, a mysterious place with all sorts of geological wonders.
No, not so much. I'm afraid it's quite.
Spoken like a scientist.
Yes, but I love also dreams and miracle, but this place of France and Europe is well known. We have probably nearby the first appearance of humans about 1 million and a half
years ago.
Years ago.
First time that humanity was found in Europe.
In Europe, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Near Béziers.
So we can safely say that it is hospitable territory. So that might be one explanation.
Yes.
As to why people.
But it is not the only hospitable place in the world.
No, not the only hospitable place in the world.
Yeah.
Very quickly before we go to the break, Bruno Delprat. Again, I'm fascinated when you look at this, at how rumors come about and everything, and why is it that suddenly people are drawn to this village? And we've been talking on French radio and television. They've been talking about this village for weeks now.
Yes, what I've heard is that's a kind of a giant garage containing a lot of UFO, space vessels coming from the constellation of Orion, and that the people that will remain in the village at the moment of the big magnetic pole inversion will be saved by the flying saucer that will come out from this village.
From that village. So yet another tale that has to be corroborated. We're going to come back, and when we do in the France 24 debate, we're going to see how sometimes it's not as much folklore, but there actually is some serious occurrences as a result of all this mania about the end of the world. Stay with us.